Hey guys, welcome to Did You Get That on Film? On this podcast, we deep dive into horror movies, and so it is full of explicit content as well as spoilers. Please be advised. Now, let's get to the show.
This is Did You Get That on Film, where we discuss characters and terrible situations that we never find ourselves in. I'm your host, DP, and with me is my co-host, someone who would miss her calling from God because she doesn't answer the phone or the door. My friend Ruth.
Well, truer words have never been spoken. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a brand new episode. In case you're wondering what the hell we're talking about today we will be discussing Immaculate. So this is the brand new Immaculate starring Sydney Sweeney. So this was released March 2024, and it was directed by Michael Mohan. And it is a single movie, so no sequels, prequels. And just a note, so this movie was actually requested by one of our listeners. So thank you so much, Drawn by Dan. We are super happy that it came to streaming so quickly so that we could cover it for you. If you guys are interested, Dan is an artist and he has a really great page on Instagram. So if you guys want to check it out, he does a lot of horror art. So he has a bunch of different series. So he has like a villain series, he has Final Girl series. They're really great. We share his art all the time. I'm sure that you guys have seen it if you follow us. But if you could support him, that would be great. His Instagram username is at drawn_by_Dan. And it would mean a lot to us, and I'm sure that it would mean a lot to him as well. I definitely think you guys should check it out. That's all that I had. Were you ready to just jump into it?
Yes, I'm ready to take my confirmation.
You ready to say those vows?
Yes.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. So, the movie opens with a young nun, and this is going to be Sister Mary. She is in her bedroom, and she is praying in Italian in front of a painting of the Virgin Mary. We then see her move that painting over to cover some writing on the walls before she pulls off her habit, grabs her suitcase, and heads out of the room. She sneaks into, I believe that this is Mother Superior's room, and she grabs her set of keys in order to unlock the gates of the convent to escape. So she sprints across the grounds, and floodlights are popping on. She is terrified. When she gets to the gate, she throws her suitcase down, and she's frantically trying to find the right key to unlock the gate. But she looks behind her, and she notices that 4 hooded figures are ominously walking towards her from the convent. So she's finally able to get the convent's gate open, but there's a huge chain that she has to squeeze through because she does not have time to find the key to this chain. And she is able to squeeze through, but it's tough and it takes her a minute. So she falls to the ground, and unfortunately, one of the hooded figures is able to grab one of her legs, and they pull her leg through the gate. There's a slight pause before the hooded figure holding her leg just snaps it in the bars of the gates. Quickly, sharply, there's exposed bone. It's aggressive. Sister Mary cries out in pain. Then the screen cuts to black. When the screen comes back, we see Sister Mary, and she is being buried alive in the tightest, most claustrophobic coffin. We can hear the dirt being piled on top of her. All she has are a few matches, and she keeps lighting them, but they keep going out. She's crying, begging, pleading, help. She lets out this blood curdling scream as the opening credits start to roll, and then we get the title screen. And that was the cold opening. What did you think of that cold opening?
I thought it was good. I thought about Pai Mei when she was in that box.
I thought that too, and I was like, this wouldn't have even worked for that because it was too tight. She wouldn't have had room to get any movement behind her fist. I don't even think she could raise her hands well.
No.
I was like, damn, I don't even know if Pai Mei could get her out of this.
I didn't expect it to be so gross. This movie is kind of like gross a little bit in terms of gore.
It's pretty graphic. When they snapped her leg, I was like, oh shit, that's crazy.
They mean business. Overall, I thought it was nice. You know, I didn't go into this movie with any real expectations of it being good. That's not me saying it's a miss. I'm just saying that when I see a preview for a convict movie, I'm just like, oh, this is gonna be okay, whatever, you know. But all in all, it was a nice opening. I did not expect to see that level of I don't want to call it gore, but I didn't expect to see that level of
brutality. Yeah.
This is definitely not a PG-13 movie.
No.
And to bury somebody alive is so freaking bad.
Yeah, no, it's pretty rough, and her screams are really blood curdling. It was tough to watch. I was like, oh wow, way to open the movie with a bang. And those cloaked figures are really kind of scary.
Andrew Tully.
Yeah. So yeah, I think people were kind of comparing this movie to a lot of the movie is set in Italy. A lot of Italian horror. I saw people throwing around Dario Argento, or at least saying that they were inspired by it. I guess I was a little surprised by how gory it was. I don't even know if I guess it's just really brutal. It's yeah, I don't want to say gory. The kills themselves, in my opinion, are not that gory.
Yeah, not compared to like Tenebrae or Suspiria.
Right. But yeah, so let's keep going because we're gonna get there. So I guess that's the first on-screen kill. Then we cut to a young nun who we will learn is Sister Cecilia, and she is going through Italian customs, a task made more difficult by the fact that one, she has no return ticket, so they find that super suspicious. And two, she does not speak Italian. So it's everything's a lot harder for her here, obviously. So she tells the officers that the convent that she is joining bought her a one-way ticket and that she is planning on taking her vows tonight. So she clears customs and heads on her way. And she is met by Deacon Enzo, who drives her to the convent. It's very remote. When she arrives there, we see that it's the same convent where Sister Maria was buried alive.
They didn't put that in the brochure.
They did not. So when Cecilia arrives to the convent, she's met by a very eager and very jovial Mother Superior. But Cecilia is quickly overwhelmed by the language barrier between the two. Mother Superior in this moment is not speaking any English. I think her English is very, very, very limited. And obviously Cecilia's Italian is very, very, very limited.
It's not existent.
No, yeah. I mean, I think she knows how to say hi.
They asked her one question and she was like, huh?
She was like, I'm learning. In her suitcase, she did have an Italian language book. So, wishing my girl luck on that. But Mother Superior does have a younger nun with her who is able to translate for Cecilia. She's able to, but she's also kind of a bitch So we're going to learn that this is Isabel. She is immediately put off by Cecilia, doesn't really like her. And her attitude is very, very not helpful. But she is tasked with taking Cecilia to her new room. On the way, Isabel gives some history about the convent, telling Cecilia that Our Lady of Sorrows was founded in 1638 as a refuge for older nuns who needed help before their deaths. So that's what Cecilia will be doing, aiding elder nuns as they transition. She also tells Cecilia that the convent was built on top of catacombs, but those are off limits. But since she brought them up, we're probably going to see them. So when they get to Cecilia's room, she gives her a little speech about how difficult their work is, not only physically, but emotionally, because you are helping older women transition. And she tells her that she doesn't have to take her vows that night, that she can still leave and God will forgive her. And Cecilia is like, bitch. She's like, I think God has sufficiently prepared me. Now, really get the fuck out of my face. Now, I put a little bit of razzle dazzle on that, but she did hit her with the I think God has sufficiently prepared me. And I was like, ooh, you go, girl.
To white booty.
What?
She wiping booties.
She's doing hospice care. She's doing more than just wiping their butts. It's hospice care.
And people who sit with old people, they wiping ass.
That's just a very small fraction of what they're doing.
Have you ever sat and wiped ass?
I have, but I prefer not to. That's why I will never go into hospice care.
She was just letting her know that I'm prepared to wipe ass. For the Lord.
I mean, basically.
So that's all I'm saying.
Now, so later, Cecilia is in her bathroom peeing, and another nun named Gwen comes barging in and sits on the windowsill of her bathroom to smoke and talks to Cecilia while Cecilia awkwardly pulls up her underwear. But Cecilia tells Gwen that she came to the convent because her parish's church, which she considered her family and home, closed due to low attendance. And she felt pretty lost after that. But then the priest here at this convent, Father Tedeschi, reached out to her and invited her to join them here.
Gwen was like, he was dealing with the kids. And she's like, no, it's just low attendance.
Right. Yeah. Gwen was immediately like, it closed, huh? You can tell me more about that. But once they're done talking, Cecilia dons her habit and robe and she heads to her vow ceremony. In the church, Father Tedeschi is there and he translates as Cecilia takes her vows from the cardinal and she kisses the cardinal's ring and receives her rosary. After the ceremony, there's a small reception, and Father Tedeschi and Cecilia talk, and they each share their reasons for joining the church. Father Tedeschi reveals that he used to work in science, biology specifically, but he really wanted something that offered more meaning, so he came to the church. Cecilia tells the story of when she was 12 years old, there was a part of the Saginaw River that would freeze over where she was from. And once it did, every year she would always walk out onto the ice. She would take her gloves off, put her hands directly on the ice, and hold them there until she couldn't feel them any longer. But the last time she did that, the ice ended up breaking and she fell into the icy water and got stuck beneath the ice. And we actually get a shot of her terrified, caught under the ice, banging. And paramedics tried to revive her, but she says that her heart stopped for almost 7 minutes. She believes that God saved her for a reason, and she's been searching for that reason for her purpose ever since. So she ends up leaving the reception, but then she hears some strange noises coming from inside the church. So she decides to go investigate. She walks into the church and then continues back into a small room, kind of off in the back of the church. And when she walks in there, there's something set up what looks like an altar, and she sees someone lying face down on the floor, totally prone, arms outstretched, and they are crying. When she places her hand on the person's back, they slowly turn to look up at her, and it's actually one of those hooded figures that we saw in the beginning of the movie. So in addition to these ominous hooded robes that they wear, they also wear this red face covering that completely covers their entire face. I mean, ears, eyes, nose, mouth, it's all covered. So Cecilia is alarmed by this, and she stands up to leave to get help, but that's when Mother Superior comes in. Cecilia asks her, "What is this room?" And Mother Superior shows her what's sitting up on the altar in a small glass case is essentially a holy nail. So it's an ancient relic. It's one of the actual nails that was used during the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. It's a nail that went through his hand. It's 2,000 years old. I guess it was brought back by the mother of Constantine. Is what how they explain it. And Cecilia is shocked to learn this, and she starts kind of swooning. She gets kind of overcome, and she ends up falling down onto the floor fainting. So then we cut to her in the confessional, and she's asking for forgiveness for fainting in front of Mother Superior, believing that it was caused by her drinking too much. And she is fearful that she might have already messed up her time here, even though she really wants nothing more than to belong. And the priest is just sitting there inside the confessional, pretty unresponsive. And then Cecilia watches as she's hallucinating. It's the confessional starts to extend, and the priest kind of disappears into the darkness. So now she leans in very close, trying to look inside the confession booth to see if she can see him, but it's just total darkness. When all of a sudden, a pair of hands crash through the wall and grab her, pulling her back. They pull her through the wall, and now she's lying on, it's like a doctor's table kind of deal. When she looks down, standing at her feet are 5 of those red-faced hooded figures. Some of the hooded figures begin violently grabbing and pulling at her face, fingers in her mouth, while one of the hooded figures lifts what looks like a dagger above their head and stabs her in the chest. She then pops awake in her bed, and it was only a dream. However, as she looks around in the darkness of her room, she sees an older nun just kind of standing in the doorway, staring. When she goes to turn on the light, there's no one there. It's just an empty doorway. She's kind of creeped out by that. So next morning at breakfast, Mother Superior is giving them a speech welcoming them to their new lives as nuns, but also preparing them for the struggles that lie ahead. She warns them that some of them will not have the spiritual fortitude to live this life of service. But while she is giving this speech, Cecilia and Gwen are sitting and they're joking with each other about having drank too much wine, and their chuckles end up grabbing the attention of Mother Superior. So she scolds Gwen, and then she separates the room into 2 sections. One section of the room will go with her to be mentored, and the other section will go with Sister Isabel, the bitch nun, to be mentored. So neither one of the women Cecilia or Gwen are particularly excited about this assignment.
Well, yeah, because the batteries ran out of her vibrator, so that's making her extra cranky.
That's Gwen's theory on the subject. We then get a montage of Cecilia and Gwen's training. So Isabel is, just essentially training them on how to care for elderly patients. They're trained on how to hang the laundry, they hang sheets outside, how to slaughter chickens, which Cecilia cannot do. She can't do it. And we see the women, Cecilia and Gwen, bond with one of the patients in this montage. And then we also see that patient die within the montage. So it is very emotionally taxing. At the end of the montage, we get this really ominous scene of Cecilia. She's pulling down the hanging sheets that are drying so she can fold them. And Isabel is just like no blink, death staring at her, watching her, and then just like disappears while ominous music plays. And Cecilia finds this extremely strange, obviously. So one night, as Cecilia is going to bed, she looks over and an elderly woman is kneeling next to her bed and swiftly cuts off a lock of her hair. And it looks like the same elderly woman that was watching her in the room the previous night. The woman holds up the lock of Cecilia's hair and she's just saying, "Blessed saint, all of us adore you." And Cecilia is just kind of looking on in disbelief because this is absurd, which is what is happening right now. Cecilia is shocked, but she gets up and she takes the woman back to bed. And as she's putting the woman back to bed, the woman is saying, "Blessed Saint Cecilia." And as Cecilia is leaving, she notices some cross-shaped scars on the bottom of the woman's feet. The next morning, while bathing, it's like a communal bathtub deal. Cecilia relays what happened to Gwen, and Gwen remarks how this place isn't as great as Cecilia thought it would be, correct? And Cecilia's like, "It's definitely different." Gwen then tells Cecilia the story of how she arrived to the convent. She says that she was in an abusive relationship, and when she went to a support group run by nuns, she just felt like those women had a really good life because they had a place to live, a job where they could keep their clothes on, and she just really wanted that. So that's why she ended up taking her vows. And Cecilia is a little taken aback by this because she didn't hear God anywhere in that equation. So she asks Gwen if she even believes in God, and Gwen has a bit of a smart aleck response, like, "Of course I do. Life is so cruel, only a man can be responsible."
Ouch.
Right. But before Cecilia can kind of grapple with that, she ends up getting very sick and vomits over the side of the bathtub. She is taken to the doctor right away. And of course, the doctor performs a pregnancy test and gets a urine sample.
Which is weird, right?
Well, it's not that weird when you consider she is new here.
She is new. Oh yeah.
Yeah, for all they know, she had sex the day before she came here, And so yeah, it's feasible that she could be pregnant because I think that at this point they've only been here a few weeks and it would take a little while to start having these kind of symptoms. So sometime later, she's sitting waiting when she hears some singing outside, and she walks over to the window and she sees one of the red-faced hooded figures walking amongst the hanging sheets. And as she's watching them, a crow ends up slamming into the window, leaving a splatter of blood as it falls to the ground and dies. Poor thing. Just then, Mother Superior comes out and she tells Cecilia to follow her. And she leads Cecilia into an office where Father Tedeschi, Dr. Gallo, and Cardinal Marola are all waiting for her. So the Cardinal is pretty roughly asking Cecilia, if she has stuck to her vows. Her vows are obedience, poverty, and chastity. And she swears that she has, and they ask her if she was with a man prior to arriving to the convent. That she will not be in trouble. They just want to know the truth. And she's really confused by the questions, but she swears that she has never in her life been with a man. The cardinal confirms with Dr. Gallo that when she first arrived to the convent, her hymen was intact. So she for sure did not have sex prior to arrival. I know, I thought that was crazy too.
But what you've been doing, priest, since you got so many questions, because it eliminates a lot of people.
Well, yeah, so that's the thing. So I think here at the convent, there are only
What, 3 men?
4. Yeah, so there's the Cardinal Marola, there's Father Tedeschi, there's Dr. Gallo, who kind of comes and goes, and then there's a deacon, Deacon Enzo. He's actually the one that drove Cecilia from the airport to the convent. He picked her up from customs. They then confirm with Mother Superior that they have had no male visitors in the past few weeks. And while they're doing all this, Cecilia is very confused, and she also sees that Mother Superior has a thick red folder in her hand that has Cecilia's photo on it, but she won't tell Cecilia what it is. She just closes it, and she stuffs it in one of the cardinal's drawers when asked about it. So that's when they decide that they need to do an ultrasound to see what's going on, because apparently her pregnancy test was positive. So they do the ultrasound and they show that she is in fact pregnant. It is a child conceived without sin. So she did not have sex to conceive this child. So this is Immaculate Conception. So Cecilia is very, very unsure how to feel about any of this. She's really upset. I would be too. If I hadn't had sex and now I had to have a baby, I would be livid, inconsolable. She really doesn't know why, of all people, God would have chosen her for this. So she's expressing all of this to Father Tedeschi, and he reassures her by telling her that this is why God saved her. She's been looking for purpose her whole life. This is that purpose that she's been searching for. So now the convent starts to treat her, I mean, essentially like the Virgin Mary. So they put her on a pedestal during church service. They sing her praises. Everyone stands when she enters a room. She's exempt from work. She really only has to focus on the baby. And from the looks of it, Gwen and Isabel are not happy with this situation. So they're really pissed about this. Some might call them haters.
For different reasons.
For different reasons, yes.
Because Gwen is still her friend.
Yes. Although I have some gripes about the treatment of Gwen's character.
The writing for Gwen.
Yes. And we're going to get more to Gwen soon in a minute, because this movie is not long at all. It's actually pretty short. It's under an hour and a half, and it does move pretty quickly through the story. I guess my issue is that we get a very clear understanding of why exactly Isabel is upset about this whole thing. We really don't get a clear, defined reason as to why Gwen is upset. When Cecilia walks in, everybody stands for her to greet her, show her respect. Gwen does not stand for her. And Gwen says something like,
pretty soon they'll be calling you Mary.
Yes. And that is
them hating shit.
Well, yeah, it sounds like hate, right? Like, it sounds like hate. And so we get that scene, so we're kind of like, that's kind of weird. That's kind of a weird thing to say, because up until this point, they've really been bonding. They really only have each other here. And so that was like kind of weird. And then we get like nothing from Gwen until we get to this point where she like explodes. And so I just feel like we don't get any build up. It's a total lack of writing of her character. It's like we get this little scene and then a big scene and then it's like, I don't
No, I
know.
understand. I understand what you're saying. Because it's like, well, was something cut?
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, I feel like we're missing some backstory here. We're missing like a pivotal conversation or something. Something's missing here. But let's keep going so we can get to that scene so we can talk about it more.
Okay.
So then we cut to Cecilia throwing up in her bathroom, clearly showing now her stomach is bigger, and we get some on-screen text letting us know
That it is the second trimester.
so in her vomit, she finds one of her teeth. It had fallen out, and she's pretty concerned about that. So then she goes to take a bath. So she's floating in, it's like these really big communal bathtubs. She's alone in there right now. And as she's floating, Isabel comes in and ends up pushing her under the water, trying to drown her. So Cecilia is able to bite her and come up for air, but Isabel starts, really manhandling Cecilia, and she's trying to push her back under the water, all the while yelling, "It was supposed to be me." And she's holding Cecilia under the water. She's really on the verge of killing Cecilia, but then some other nuns come in and pull her off of Cecilia and drag her out of the room. Kicking and screaming, just like saying over and over again, they have to try again with me. They have to try again with me. So, of course, Cecilia goes to see Dr. Gallo because of this encounter, and they do an ultrasound just to make sure that the baby is fine and didn't get injured in this scuffle. And they're like, the baby is great. No issues. Hooray. But Cecilia's like, that's cool and all, but I am not okay. So she tells Father Tedeschi about what Isabel said about how it was supposed to be her, and she really wants to know, like, why would she say that? What does she mean by that? And so Father Tedeschi tells her that Isabel has been losing her battle with mental illness for a while, and that Cecilia's miracle must have triggered something inside of her. Now, Dante,
Why do they always do that?
in a movie, if a man dismisses a woman as mentally unstable, then I know for sure that he
He's evil.
is he's evil. He's the fucking villain in this movie. He is the bad guy because that's really all he says. It's like, "Oh yeah, she just like has mental health issues." Okay, she wasn't really giving mentally ill when she was training us, when she was acting as Mother Superior's right-hand woman, you know?
And she seems very focused when she was trying to make me a goddamn
Flotation device. It was a pretty targeted attack, you know? I don't like that. I don't, as soon as he said that, I was like, okay, he's the bad guy. But he tells her that he will make sure that nothing like this ever happens to her again. And then when Dr. Gallo leaves the room, Cecilia tells Father Tedeschi that she wants to see another doctor because she's like, Dr. Gallo is used to taking care of old women.
that are near death.
Right, because this is like a hospice. It's just like one big hospice convent. And she's like, I'm an expectant mother, a young one. So she wants to go to a real hospital. But Father Tedeschi tells Cecilia, he's like, well, Dr. Gallo is a licensed obstetrician.
Boy, shut up!
That's what I said. Like, Joe, don't fucking play with me right now. Like, be fucking for real right now. He may be a licensed obstetrician, but this is not a
Full service hospital.
like, you probably have that ultrasound machine to look for like fucking Charlie horses and old women. You know what I mean? Like, you're not looking for babies. This is not a baby facility. I don't even think they have prenatal vitamins to give her. This is kind of fucked up.
They have many herbs.
Fucking mini Castevet in her Tannis root. Yeah, probably. So she's like, I don't think it's unreasonable for her to ask to go to a real hospital because so Dr. Gallo was like, hey, I overheard what you're saying. Did you know that on Thursdays and Saturdays, I actually deliver babies at the local hospital? And she's like, I don't give a fuck about that.
Hey, did you know that on today and right now I will whip your ass?
She's like, bitch, my tooth fell out this morning. I'm not doing well. Because Father Tedeschi's like, I mean, you're perfectly healthy. You really don't need a hospital right now. She's like, I threw up a tooth. Let's be real right now. So Dr. Gallo, and I hate fucking gaslighting men in movies. So Dr. Gallo tells her that he's like, well, you know, hospitals are not the safest places.
Shut up.
Shut the fuck up. And he's like, you know, you could go there and you could get sick, and we wouldn't want that. But additionally, Dr. Tedeschi's like, we really don't want
The word to get out regarding this Immaculate Conception.
and they really want her to remain at the convent until the Savior is born. And I was like, realistically, though, if everything was on the up and up, wouldn't they want people outside of this very small circle of people at this convent to know that this was an Immaculate Conception? Because how could that be verified later? If people don't verify it now while she still has a hymen intact.
What is the other doctor going to discover is what I'm trying to figure out. Aren't you checking just, okay, I just want to check to see the heartbeat and I want to make sure that like my vitals are up.
Well, you know what? I mean, realistically, yeah, that's probably what they would do. There has to be some indication that something is wrong to get genetic testing.
Right.
I don't know. But for all intents and purposes, it looks like when Dr. Gallo is doing the ultrasound, the baby looks normal. It doesn't look like anything's wrong with it. So I have a feeling, I mean, I'm assuming that she would go and get blood tests done, but like, what would that show? I don't know.
I'm ready to get to the other part because what the hell is this baby made of?
Okay, yeah, so let's keep let's keep going. So Cecilia concedes and she does decide to stay. And as she's walking around the convent lamenting because she's fucking swallowing teeth, she spots some of those red-faced hooded figures watching her from up in a window as she's walking. And she thinks that's odd, but she just kind of continues walking. And in a really cool bit of camera work, so I like stuff like this. So she's walking, and it's a really kind of innocuous thing. Like she's just walking through like the courtyard area under an awning. And so the camera is next to her, and we're kind of looking at her profile. Her head is down, she's lamenting. We're really focused on Cecilia. But then all of a sudden, so it's just like beyond her in the distance, we see it's very quick. It's this black blur fall from a high window and hit the ground. So Cecilia whips her head around, looks in the direction. There's some shrieking. Cecilia ends up running over, and there's a woman on the ground, face down, dead, blood everywhere. So they turn the body over, and it is Isabel, and she's died from an apparent suicide. When they roll her over, her face is a bloody pulp. I mean, like ground beef level pulp, and her eyes are wide open, staring. Crazy image. And I guess that's like the second on-screen death. I don't think Isabel committed suicide. I don't know if that's a controversial thing. Do you think she committed suicide?
Did she got pushed?
I think she got pushed. Yes.
By one of the cloaks?
Yes, because they were already setting it up that she had mental health issues, which we kind of know is not true. And remember, Father Tedeschi is like, I'm going to make sure that that nothing like that ever happens to you again, with Isabel attacking her. So I know that they couldn't leave Isabel alive. And I know that they probably wouldn't because they attacked their new Virgin Mary. So I feel like they would do something to her. And if they're already setting it up in people's minds that she has a mental health disorder, I just feel like that would be the easiest way to kill her.
Just to push her off of them.
Yeah. But at the same time, she could have also killed herself. It really could go either way. Because she was upset. But I don't know. I didn't get the vibe that she killed herself, but maybe.
I thought to myself that because she's a woman, she was mentally ill, therefore she killed herself.
Guys, he doesn't mean that.
Not at all. Well, a man told me that she was mentally ill, therefore I believe him because
a man said it.
Well, he has a Y chromosome, so that makes it correct.
Exactly.
But no, I like your theory better. Because one of my, we're not there yet, but one of my complaints is all of a sudden, Father Tedeschi was just like evil. It felt like.
Okay, so yeah, so when we first meet Father Tedeschi, he is very friendly, right? He feels like an ally for Cecilia. He seems really nice.
Yeah.
He seems really gentle, really meek. And yeah, you're right. So I mean, if it's not clear, I don't think that we're spoiling it for people because this is a man.
The movie's halfway over.
Well, yeah. But this is a man that's blaming this woman's mental health issues, like blaming her feelings on her mental health issues. So we already know he's a villain because that's how this shit goes. So I don't want to, no spoilers here, but yeah, it's like all of a sudden it feels like, that complete shift in Scream movies when they discover who Ghostface is and they go from being a normal person to a complete fucking psycho. It's just like especially in that last one where Quinn was really normal, like a really cool normal hoe, and then it's like we find out she's Ghostface, and now all of a sudden she's like fucking eating blood and stuff. Like I just
shut the fuck up, you lying bitch.
And I was like, this is crazy. This is very, very intense. I don't know. Amber too. She was like mad normal, and then all of a sudden she's like a psycho. And I was like, I don't know. It kind of feels like that. There's a definite shift.
Yes, but in those movies, there's a scene where they take their mask off. In this movie, I was like, what? I kept thinking, when the hell he became so goddamn crazy?
Well, okay. Well, let's keep going.
Okay.
So during the procession, this movie moves really quickly. So
fast.
During the procession behind Isabel's coffin, Gwen is talking to Cecilia. So this is the first time that we're seeing Gwen since that very, very tiny scene of her in the cafeteria area. So Gwen is telling Cecilia that she needs to open her eyes and stand up for herself. She does not trust the convent. She notes that Cecilia is 5 months pregnant and hasn't even been to a real hospital, which Cecilia is like, bitch, I know, okay? What the hell do you want me to do? So Cecilia's like, I don't think we could just leave this place. Like, on some real shit. I'm definitely getting the vibe that we just cannot, like, come and go as we please.
So I'm hoping when I say this, you keep that to yourself and then we reconvene some other time so we can work on a plan to leave.
Because that would be the logical thing right now. Am I wrong or am I right? And Cecilia's trying to like whisper too, and Gwen's being too fucking loud. It's a funeral procession. There's too many people about, okay? Too many ears on us right now. Bitch, yes, I'm aware. I'm doing the best that I fucking can. But additionally, if we got out right now, if they left the gate open and everybody went blind for 2 minutes and we were allowed to walk out, we are literally in the middle of fucking nowhere. We have nothing. There's like one singular car in this place.
We're at the Carmichael Manor.
Essentially, we're like 20 miles from the nearest village. It's like, bitch, yeah, okay, I hear what you're saying, but like, we need to make a plan. I can't just like fucking walk out right now. In case you haven't noticed, I'm pregnant as fuck. Yes. So like, are we gonna come up with a fucking plan, or are you just gonna go crazy? Which she just goes crazy, right? So Gwen is telling Cecilia, she's like, you can't even trust that thing inside of you. And when Cecilia mentions, she's like, well, this is like God's plan. Gwen says God has nothing to do with that shit. before they're stopped by Father Tedeschi, who overhears them because Gwen is being loud as fuck.
And it is a funeral.
It's a fucking procession. They're like, bitch, why are you talking so loud? So Father Tedeschi's like, hey, is something wrong? Because I can tell that you're like a little worked up. And he goes to touch Gwen. What did Gwen think was going to happen? I guess I'm like, Gwen, you just said yourself you don't trust the people in this convent. You're like, you need to open your eyes. You need to stand up for yourself. You need to leave. I got the impression that Gwen was smarter than this, but then they just have her flip out, and it's like I didn't think that this was a smooth transition. So she is fired up at this point, and she's just like, don't fucking touch me. And she says, fuck this, and she walks over to a balcony, and she's looking down at the people below. On the balcony, she starts yelling down into the courtyard, and in the courtyard, there's Dr. Gallo, there's Mother Superior, there's Cardinal Merola, and a bunch of other nuns are standing around. And she says, and this is quotes, because I know I throw a lot of curse words and stuff, but this is like directly what she said. So she said, how the fuck can you just stand there as if nothing happened? Cecilia is pregnant and we don't know how. Isabel killed herself. What the fuck is going on? And she's doing a lot right now. She's going pretty hard. And it's like, I get it, Gwen. You're upset. And I know that this shit is like mad crazy right now. But I just felt like this was not the way to go about it, especially if you already have bad feelings.
But you talking real reckless in a house and you ain't got no money. Who you cursing at?
And then the Cardinal, like Mother Superior, they're just all standing there looking at her. Like, they're really not reacting at all because they're just like, well, you're dead. So when Father Tedeschi tries to pull her away and talk to her, she whips around and tells him to let her go. And she says, I know when a man is lying to me. Good on you, girl. But
he was like, but I'm a man, therefore I don't lie. So what are you talking about?
So checkmate. But she then turns back. She's yelling at them again, and she's telling them that every single one of them is full of shit. So now at this point, she is not handling this well. She's not going about this the right way. Her feelings are valid, obviously, but it's like, girl. So that's when Father Tedeschi and Deacon Enzo, they manhandle her, grab her, and drag her away, kicking and screaming. Now, I know that I just said that her feelings are valid, but I will admit that when I was watching it, up until this point, did you think her feelings are valid? Like, I know that, yes, it may feel like they are, but realistically, we don't know what's going on here, right?
They wanted to get her out of the movie, it seemed, very quickly.
Agreed. Yeah, because there's no time. We get no in-between discussion. They don't discover anything. They don't learn anything. It's just like she's kind of, I don't know, at the breakfast table, it almost seemed like she was a little bit resentful.
And her entire like blow up had nothing to do with like they're treating you like you're like the Virgin Mary and we don't know. She doesn't bring up anything like that.
No, all of a sudden it's like, you can't trust anybody here. I don't trust anybody. You need to open your eyes and you need to get out of here. You need to go to a real hospital. And it's like, damn, where did this leap come from? I guess I'm just thinking what prompted Gwen to not only say these things, but go this hard. I could understand if she was starting to have some suspicions, because this is weird. I think even Cecilia is having some suspicions that things are not right.
But you don't even get scenes of them comparing notes. You know what I'm saying?
Right. This from what the movie shows us, this is the first time they're speaking since that breakfast. And I don't know if that's why Cecilia is having a hard time getting as invested as Gwen is.
No, she's not invested because she's like, what the hell do you want me to do? I can't leave.
That too. I mean, she's trying to use reason, and Gwen isn't offering anything. Gwen isn't like, well, let's come up with a plan. Because usually, that's kind of how stuff goes in movies like this. Somebody will come up with a plan.
And then she becomes the heroic sacrifice. That's what I thought it was going to be.
Like, she is going to die, but because she dies, that helps our
Final girl.
heroine, get to where she needs to get to. Nah, I mean, no, nothing of the sort. So, Gwen gets pulled away, and I was sitting there and I was just like,
Are they going to replace her brain?
that would have been cool. A Stepford wife?
Yeah.
But the movie is, like we said, less than an hour and a half. I don't know if it's like a few pages went missing in the screenplay. I don't know. I feel like we're missing some build up. We're missing some additional creepy moments because like the creepiest stuff thus far that's happened is like that creepy nun cut Cecilia's hair that has nothing to do with the plot. She has the crosses on her feet, but we don't get any more insight into that until late. You know what I mean? And Mother Superior, we're about to get to that scene. Mother Superior had that folder on Cecilia, and so we think that that's about to be something, but then that kind of doesn't turn out to be much either. I just don't think that this movie has a lot of good buildup of tension.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden Gwen is just like, this place can't be trusted. I don't like it. Like, fuck all of you. And then she can get violently taken out of the story, and that'll like push our heroine further. But it's like, damn, we didn't get any build up. We don't see anything else about Isabel. She just dies. And I thought the Isabel death scene was like more well done, but it just felt like it kind of fit. It added like a startled feeling. Like you really weren't expecting that to happen, but it's like we don't get any other context.
No.
I don't know. Like, it's not even like we get a scene of Cecilia and Gwen talking about Isabel's death and how weird it was. Or Cecilia even explaining that she asked to go to the hospital and giving reasons why they denied her, and Gwen being like, that's really weird. Like, she's just like, boom, 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 boom.
Does Gwen even know that Isabel tried to kill Cecilia?
We don't know. We don't get anything of that. She doesn't mention it at all.
That's what I'm asking. It just seems very like scenes were just cut. Like they wanted it to be short because they didn't want it to be too long, but at the same time, Gwen should have played more in the movie.
I agree.
They introduced her as like her best friend.
I agree.
We had a little montage of them doing sheets.
But then we only kind of get a little montage. We get a scene of them in the bathtub area, and then we get that montage of them together. And then it's kind of like downhill from there. And I feel like she could have served a bigger purpose. And we'll get there. So let's keep going. So later that night in her room, Cecilia is sitting on her bed lamenting when one of the chains that's holding up a portrait of the Virgin Mary on her wall breaks, and it's exposing the writing on the wall. So, surprise, surprise, Cecilia is in the same room that Sister Mary was in the beginning when she escaped. So Cecilia took her place in this convent. So we're finally getting a chance to see what the writing on the wall was that we saw Mary covering up in the cold opening. So it's in Italian, so Cecilia cannot understand it. I mean, it might as well be in hieroglyphs. But she does see that written under it is 2 Corinthians and a verse number. So she pulls out her Bible to find it. And the verse reads, quote, "For Satan himself often masquerades as an angel of light." And this unsettles her. So she goes to try to find Gwen. But Gwen's room is empty, bed unslept in. I wish that she'd been able to talk to Gwen about this first. You know what I mean? Like, I wish that this had been something that went into making Gwen as paranoid as she was. Like, they found this, and that gave them some insight. So Gwen's not there, so she keeps quietly moving through the convent, and she ends up going to Cardinal Marola's office. and she tries to get the drawer open that's holding that file that Mother Superior had when they were questioning her. When she sees that the drawer is locked, she uses a letter opener to pry it open. In that folder is newspaper clippings from Cecilia's accident when she was 12 years old, as well as a karyotype, so a chromosome analysis, I guess, of Cecilia's that they got some kind of way. I guess. I'm not really sure. They don't elaborate on that because Cecilia sees this. That's all that we see in the folder. And then it's like puts the folder back, like we're done with this information. So when she hears some distant kind of chattering and footsteps, she goes to see what it is. And when she gets out into the courtyard, she can hear Gwen frantically yelling in Italian, saying no, screaming, crying. Cecilia follows the noises to a room, and she's watching through the peephole, and she sees Gwen strapped to a chair with some of those red-faced hooded figures in the room with her. They have a lot of sharp weapons on a table in front of them, and one of them picks up a dagger, and they pull Gwen's tongue out and secure it with irons so it's stretched taut, and then they use that dagger to cut off Gwen's tongue as Cecilia watches in horror. And it's a pretty unrelenting scene. The camera stays on Gwen the entire time. There's no cutaways while they're cutting off her tongue, and they don't obscure it in any way. The figure, it just straight like cuts her tongue off, and it's just kind of like hanging there. And Gwen is screaming. I mean, as best as she can.
I didn't like that. I covered my face.
That's understandable. I kept thinking that they were going to cut away, like cut back to Cecilia's face or something. They didn't. They showed them cutting her tongue off. So just then, the elder nun from earlier in the movie, the one that was watching Cecilia, the one that cut off a piece of her hair, she comes up behind Cecilia, and she ends up grabbing her from behind and telling her to be quiet. And she gives her this little kind of handmade kind of like figurine thing, and it's made of Cecilia's hair, which was a lot. And she keeps calling Cecilia a saint. Cecilia, recognizing that the woman does like her, she begs the woman to help her. She's telling her that they have to leave. And the woman gets kind of like irrationally angry at this. So she's pissed, and she says in English, in almost a distorted voice, with almost kind of like a distorted face, she's like, "You will never leave here." So Cecilia is scared.
Yeah.
Fair, yeah. And so she just hurries back to her room. So now we cut to the next morning, and Mother Superior and Father Tedeschi are awoken by some blood-curdling screams. They follow it, and they find Cecilia in her bed with a pool of blood between her legs, and it appears as though she has had a miscarriage. When I say pool of blood, I mean it is like well over a gallon and a half of blood. So Father Tedeschi tells Mother Superior to call Dr. Gallo, but she says that is not possible. It's Saturday, and he delivers babies on Saturdays. She's like, they will not be able to reach him. So Mother Superior says they need to get her to a hospital, but Father Tedeschi refuses. He does not want to do it. And when Mother Superior says that she's going to go call an ambulance, he forcefully tells her to stop. So now Cecilia is wailing, screaming, and she's like, "I don't want to die. I don't want to die." And so Father Tedeschi has no choice in this moment but to snatch her up, throw her in the car, and he and Deacon Enzo drive off. Now back in Cecilia's room, Mother Superior is frantically praying over the bloody bed, putting her face all in the blood, when she looks down and she notices a feather on the side of Cecilia's bed. When she goes to inspect further, she finds a chicken carcass with its head chopped off, stuffed in a pillowcase hidden under Cecilia's bed. And so at this point, she puts two and two together and she knows for a fact that Cecilia is faking her miscarriage. Now, embarrassingly, Cecilia is in the back of the car with Father Tedeschi and Deacon Enzo, just, I mean, putting on a fucking show. So she is cutting up, wailing, crying, and Mother Superior ends up calling Father Tedeschi and tells him what she found. And he turns and looks at Cecilia, who doesn't know what's going on. So she's still like kind of yelling, kind of unsure. And he looks pissed, absolutely pissed. And this is, I guess, the mask off moment.
Okay.
Because the look on his face, this is the change in him. After this, he doesn't do anything redeemable after this. So the way he's looking at her is very terrifying, and he tells Deacon Enzo to stop the car, and he just stares daggers at her. And so it's at this point that she realizes that he must know what she's done.
The gig is up.
For sure. So she just screams and jumps out of the car and makes a run for it. And she's running through fields, barefoot, covered in blood. But Father Tedeschi and Deacon Enzo are too fast, and they catch up to her and drag her back to the convent. Now, her special treatment is done. And Mother Superior is pissed. Father Tedeschi's pissed. Deacon Enzo's pissed. So Mother Superior has her in the shower, and she's telling her to wash herself.
She fussed at her.
She's really fussing at her, but Cecilia's completely naked, so she doesn't want to wash herself in front of Mother Superior. And Mother Superior is like, bitch. She's like, oh, you're shy now? Well, you weren't shy when you were stuffing dead animal parts inside of yourself.
But they wanted to get sure you got that Sydney Sweeney, at least a little titty shot.
They had to. It was obligatory. And she has her hands across her boobs, but it's like, I'm not trying to objectify
her. Yeah. We're just saying that, like...
Yeah, that's why this scene is in here. So Mother Superior is just very, very upset that she tried to make them think that the Savior had died. And, like, Father Tedeschi is bad. Everybody is bad. That is a fact. But I kind of felt a little for Mother Superior just because she is bad. That is true. But she genuinely believes in this Savior, in this child that, I was about to call her Sydney, that Cecilia is having. When she was faced with the thought that this child died, I mean, she was inconsolable, praying, crying.
Because she was like, we had to go to the hospital.
She really is concerned with this Savior. It's Father Tedeschi and the Cardinal. They're exerting their power over Mother Superior as well. She doesn't have any power in this situation. She is just trying to be a faithful nun. So I did kind of feel a little bit differently about Mother Superior than I did about Father Tedeschi. Because, like, yeah, they all are bad, but there's definitely, like, different degrees of villain. So she starts scrubbing Cecilia clean, and she asks Cecilia if she has anything to say for herself. And Cecilia just says, God will never forgive you. And Mother Superior slaps her across the face, slaps a taste clean out her mouth. And then we cut to Cecilia, who is now bound to an old wheelchair. And she's in that altar room where the holy nail relic is located. So as she's struggling, Father Tedeschi comes in And he apologizes to her if he scared her at all, but he assures her that she is safe. And so she asked him what he did to her. And that's when he pulls out the holy nail and he's showing it to her, and he's explaining that on this 2,000-year-old relic, they were actually able to find tiny bits of blood, tissue, and fragments of bone. And it was a very small amount, but enough to give them a genetic code. And that genetic code was the key to resurrection. Cecilia tells him that he is insane. So he takes her down to a basement area where there are a bunch of jars filled with disfigured fetuses. And he calls them the failures. But what Cecilia is carrying is his success. It doesn't make Cecilia feel that he is any less insane. If anything, she feels that he is even more insane. Because seeing these fetuses in these jars, they're very malformed. There's like their upper body's missing. There's a lot of like growths on them. Like they're very, very crazy looking. He says that he's been doing this, it's taken 20 years worth of trial and error for God to finally deliver to them, one, the knowledge they needed, and then two, the perfect fertile vessel, and that is Cecilia. And he goes on to explain that he left genetics because people disagreed with the ethics of his experiments, but the church was willing to try to let him work if he could bring about this savior. He says that creating the savior is his calling, and her calling is carrying this savior. But she is not buying into this plan. So because she's not being submissive and just accepting what he's saying,
Behaving like she got a wide corpus on.
right. And he's like, girl, I'm going to humble you real quick. He's like, I did all I can do. Well, he has someone else in the office with him.
The deacon.
Was it Deacon Enzo?
Yeah, everybody's a villain.
Well, right. So he has Deacon Enzo in the lab with him. And this whole time, he's been warming a brand in the fire. So because she's not accepting what he's saying, he's like, that's cool, whatever. He takes this flaming hot cross-shaped brand and he ends up branding the bottom of Cecilia's feet in order to keep her from running away. And this is when we discover that these are the same brands that we saw on the other nun's foot. So we know that she is one of the women that he tried this experiment with.
But even if he did it to her 20 years ago, she's still old as hell.
I thought the same thing. I thought that, Dante, that is so fucking funny that you should bring that up. Because I was like, I finished watching the movie, I'm walking my dogs, and I was like, that lady looks old as fuck. I don't know, because I'm like, okay, the material that they're working with is already crazy as hell. They got it from a rusty nail, okay? So I'm not trying to shit on this. I mean, I respect you're wanting to bring about, you know, a new coming of Christ. I get it. But like, let's be really, really real right now. You're pulling rust scraps off of a old nail, and you're like, I'm gonna make a baby with this. And so it's no wonder they come out with no fucking ears and feet.
It ain't sperm.
Dante, yes, it's like, I don't know, it's like they're artificially inseminating them with this like weird, I don't know, it's such a weird fucking thing. So then I'm like, okay, if you're putting this shit in a 50-year-old, then you didn't want the baby to live. Then you were just trying to fuck around. Because there's no way that this woman, because remember, she's in this fucking like hospice place anyway.
That was so weird.
And I don't know, he has young nuns there. I mean, besides Cecilia, I guess we're going to get to that point they don't really make it entirely clear why they've chosen Cecilia. I guess they saw the newspaper of her miraculous survival from this accident that she had and thought that maybe that would mean that she was very lucky. Not lucky, but highly blessed.
That's the only reason. That's the reason they're giving us. That's why we saw that file.
But that file was one newspaper clipping and a picture of chromosomes. Okay. So after they brand her feet, they then wheel Cecilia back to her room and they lock her in the room and she kind of loses it, screaming, banging on the door. So then the screen cuts to Cecilia at confession and we get some on-screen text saying that she is in her third trimester. So she begins questioning the cardinal about how long they'd been targeting her and what are his plans after the baby is born. And at this point, it's very obvious that she isn't doing well. So one of her fingernails peels clean off.
Ew, that was such a gross shot.
Yeah, they really show it. I mean, it's same thing that they did with like Gwen's tongue. It's pretty unrelenting. They show her peeling this nail straight off. And he sees this happening and she says to him, "This is not God's work." To which he replies, "If it isn't, then why isn't he stopping us?" So now in her room, Dr. Gallo is giving her an ultrasound and he's saying that the baby should be coming any day now. And then he asks Mother Superior if she wants to take a look using the ultrasound machine, and she is overjoyed. And so he excuses himself because he's going to go get Cecilia's medication. And Cecilia notices that he does not close the door on his way out because they have been keeping her locked in her room, but the door is wide open in this moment. So now Mother Superior is convinced that this baby really is the savior. And so she is just in awe right now, staring at the ultrasound. And she's just talking about what a blessing this is, how beautiful Cecilia is. And so she is so distracted that she doesn't notice Cecilia picking up a large metal crucifix from her nightstand. And she uses this crucifix to hit Mother Superior in the head several times. Mother Superior falls to the floor and she beats her in the face.
She beats her like she wears white shoes after Labor Day.
Sure did. And it kind of crushes her face in and she dies. And that is the third on-screen death. So that's when Cecilia goes to escape and just then her water breaks.
She's like, oh shit.
Yeah, she's like, son of a bitch. So she then heads to the cardinal's office and she sneaks up behind him and she wraps her rosary beads around his neck and just chokes him to death. So fourth on-screen kill.
Oh, you see it.
Yeah, it's like they give you a close-up of the rosary beads digging into his neck and it's like breaking the skin. It's no joke. He got off easy.
Yeah, compared to what we're about to see, yeah.
So Dr. Gallo walks in at that moment and he sees what she has done and he runs off, presumably to tell the others, while she grabs the cardinal's cigarette lighter, his Zippo, and his ring of keys to the convent. So at this point, she is actively in labor, but she's trying to move fast and she grabs the holy nail relic and she heads down to Father Tedeschi's lab. So in his lab, she pours ethanol all over the laboratory and she is about to set it on fire when Father Tedeschi arrives. Now he's charging towards her, but he stops in his tracks when he sees that she's about to set herself and all of his research on fire. And he tells her that it won't solve anything because if she dies, they will just find another person to inseminate. And he says that to end all of this, she just needs to deliver the savior. Just then, she starts to have some contractions, and it causes her to double over in pain. And Father Tedeschi lunges at her, and she's able to escape. And she locks him in the lab, but he's able to grab her hair through the door. And so now there's a struggle. He's grabbing her face and everything, and she ends up breaking one of his fingers, but he isn't letting go. So that's when she notices that some of the ethanol leaking under the door, and she throws the lighter down, and Father Tedeschi and the lab immediately go up in flames. Everything catches fire, and he's struggling to get out, but then there's this big explosion, and Cecilia breathes a sigh of relief that this is all over. But psych! Because then she hears Father Tedeschi using a fire extinguisher to put out the flames, and he breaks the door down. So she has no choice but to escape into the catacombs underneath the convent with nothing but a very shitty flashlight. And Father Tedeschi is hot on her heels. So now the catacombs are like a maze, and the flashlight that she has keeps going in and out. But at one point, she's in the darkness, it's gone out, and she's able to get it back on. But that's when she sees Gwen's body lying in the catacombs.
Why?
I don't know. I guess why not?
But all the places to bury her.
She's not really even buried. Her body's just kind of thrown in there raw. I mean, it doesn't make sense why. Her body's just thrown in there. There is no reason for it other than to set up this
Jump scare.
Yeah. Because even Sister Mary in the beginning, when they broke her leg, they buried her alive. We know that they buried Isabel. It's just like there's no reason.
That's why it was so silly to me. And then like in the catacombs?
All right, and just raw. She's not even wrapped up. They just like put her body in the catacombs. It's crazy. It doesn't make sense. When Cecilia sees it, she wants to scream, but she's able to stifle it. And then she keeps moving until she sees a spot of light shining through. There's an opening. It's like a small tunnel that she can climb up out of from the catacombs to the surface. But as she's climbing out, Father Tedeschi, burnt and bloody, catches her by her ankle and drags her back down into the catacombs. He has a scalpel and he begins to slice into Cecilia's belly in order to cut out the baby. And he's just like praying the whole time. So that's when Cecilia pulls out the holy nail and jams it into Father Tedeschi's neck. It's spraying blood all over the place before Father Tedeschi falls over dead. And that is the 5th on-screen kill. I'm not going to count Gwen, but I'm going to count Father Tedeschi as the 5th on-screen kill. We didn't see her die. We just saw her get her tongue cut out.
Yeah.
Now Cecilia climbs out of the catacombs. She's outside of the convent, but in the middle of nowhere. So at this point, she is in active labor. She cannot stop it any longer. And so this scene is really... I thought this scene was very well done. I thought that it did a good job. It was very raw and very uncomfortable to watch. But it's Sydney Sweeney, so it's Cecilia, and it's just a close-up of her face. And the scene lasts, like almost a full minute. But her face is covered in blood. It's like she's kind of like spitting, drooling blood, and she's just screaming. It's like a gut-wrenching scream because right now she is
crowning.
Yes. So she is actively having this baby right now. So that's when she starts pushing. This screaming is her pushing this baby out. And she's standing up doing this. And so it's these like really guttural screams before we end up hearing kind of like a plop. And the baby has come out and fallen onto the ground. Now we cannot see the baby, but when she looks down, she looks at the baby in disgust. I cannot imagine what this baby looks like. There isn't any crying coming from the baby. You just do kind of hear some very, very slight kind of coughing noises. So I think it is alive. So she then takes her teeth and she just straight chews through her umbilical cord. Once she does that, she walks over and picks up a heavy stone. And while she's doing this, we can see on the ground like a little bloody blob in the distance that is supposed to be the baby, but it doesn't really look like a baby to me. That's when she walks back over to where the baby's on the ground. She kneels down and she screams as she slams the stone down onto the baby, presumably killing it. And the screen cuts to black and the end credits start to roll. And the baby is the 6th on-screen kill.
Very Hills Have Eyes.
That was really raw. I really appreciated the last part of this movie. I know that this movie is very short, and I really wish that they'd added some areas, like added more context, maybe some more conversations between characters like Gwen and Cecilia. I did not like the catacombs scene. I was like, can we get through this, please?
It was like, you remember in Halloween 2007 when Laurie goes back into the Myers house?
And she's fucking climbing through the walls and through the ceilings and stuff. And it's like, all right, come on, let's get this shit over with. Yeah, I didn't like the catacomb scene. And I know that like any movie that has something that has like underground tunnels or catacombs, they're gonna fucking use it because that's typically like a scary setting. I just thought at this point we didn't need the catacombs scene. I just wish I don't know. I wish that she would have just ran to the opening and tried to climb out and then had this encounter. I didn't appreciate her finding Gwen's body because I thought that was kind of silly that she would even be in here.
I thought that was so dumb.
I thought that was very, very silly. I didn't like that. I thought that was kind of a cheap jump scare. They did have jump scares throughout the movie, and I thought that they were, they were okay. They were effective.
Really tasteful.
Yeah. I didn't like this one. This was just a jump scare, just to what? Just to throw it in there? I don't know.
Right.
But so the Rotten Tomatoes for this movie is a 71% critic and a 60% audience. And it has an IMDb score of 5.9 out of 10 with 17,000 reviews. So I don't have a ton of fun facts about this movie just because it just came out. There's not like a ton of behind the scenes stuff yet. But one thing that I thought was very cool. So that final shot when Cecilia is doing that really, really guttural screaming when she's giving birth to that baby, that like sickly raw footage, that was just a one take. Sydney Sweeney only needed one take to nail that final shot. And I was like, good for her, girl. A cute little fact. So in an interview with IMDb, Sydney Sweeney actually revealed that both of her grandmothers appear during the church scenes. So she says, quote, in both of the church scenes where I'm walking with the candles down the aisles, they're in the first 2 rows. And in the scene where I'm being crowned and everybody in the congregation is singing, they're standing in the front row next to Mother Superior. And I was like, that's cute.
I like that.
Me too. And then, so according to the director, so he said that they had to do some reshoots. So they had to do a bunch of reshoots of close-up shots that they didn't get when they were initially filming the movie. And so they essentially had Sydney Sweeney standing in front of this fake wall and just kind of giving her sounds or cues, and she would have to react to them. So she had to react to a series. She was just staring at a tape mark, and they just literally went through a bunch of different emotions, and she was just nailing each one. Like, she wasn't in the scene. She was just able to nail those emotions like back to back to back to back. Just like this wide range of varied emotions using very little prompt. And so he was just really, really impressed with that level of skill in her acting. And I thought Sydney Sweeney did a good job in this movie.
Yeah.
I'd only seen Sydney Sweeney thus far in Euphoria. Obviously a very, very different role. So I was very impressed with her. And so final fact, and I just thought that this was so cool, and I didn't know this about the movie. Development of Immaculate actually started as early as 2014. And Sydney Sweeney at the time was only 17 years old, and she auditioned for the role from the first screenplay that was written by a man named Andrew Lobel. But the project it never materialized. It kind of ended up in development hell instead of entering production. So Sydney Sweeney would end up pursuing her role on Euphoria, and that was kind of like her breakout role. And so because of that, years later, Sydney Sweeney actually purchased the rights to the screenplay, and she would go on to, she's a producer on this movie. She would go on to then reach out to a new writer to get a revised script. She hired a director, so that she actually reached out to Michael Mohan to get him on as a director. She found financiers, and she ended up selling the film to Neon. And so that is, Sydney Sweeney is like the almost sole reason that this film was even created in the first place. And I just thought that was like so cool.
I think so too.
A real like
Full circle moment.
yeah. And then she went on to star in it, and it did well. And I was like, I just really love that for her.
Me too.
And yeah, so that's all that I have for the fun facts. So with all that being said, what do you think? I'm very curious. Do you think this is a hit or a miss?
I think this is a miss.
Okay.
I think there's just a lot that can be added to it. It's not a bad movie in the sense of like it's terrible and it's so horrible to watch. But when you sit down with it and you're really trying to make sense of it, it moves so fast. There's just that parts that are missing. There were times where I was like going back to rewind it to make sure that I didn't miss a scene. It could have used 10 more minutes. So when you see the catacombs for like maybe 4 or 5 minutes of just like wasted screen time, I think if they would have added 5 more minutes in the big part of the movie, more win, more character development, and just more of heel turn for the father, I think it would have been really, really well.
I totally understand that. I agree with all of those things. Absolutely. If the catacombs scene had been removed and they would have put that time a little bit more elsewhere, I feel like if the screenplay could have gotten just a tad bit more, just a little bit more flushed out, I think it would have been like great. But with that being said, so I think I really struggled with this. I in this very moment right now, I still don't know what I want to give it. I think I'm gonna give it a hit. I'm gonna give it a hit with a lot of caveats. So I'm gonna give it a hit, and I'm going to say that in no way do I think that this is a great movie. I do not think that this is necessarily going to like stand the test of time. I'm giving it a hit, and that is based a lot on Sydney Sweeney's performance. I thought that it was very, very good. I liked the kills. I thought that they were well done. There's so many things that, I've mentioned throughout that I didn't like about it. I wish that they just kind of added a little bit more, so we got a little bit more context, a little bit more explanation, character development. But I think that overall, I think Sydney Sweeney's performance carries this movie. And I like the way it's shot. I do like the cinematography. I like the setting. And yeah, I didn't, I thought that it had some like creepiness to it, a little bit of eeriness. And so I'll give it a hit. I probably won't keep watching this movie, but I'm going to remember it. It has some really memorable scenes. You know what's one thing we didn't mention? You know what they did not explain at all? The fucking hooded figures. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. They did not fucking explain
They
those.
said they're scary. What else you want to know?
I mean, yeah. I mean, basically, they're scary. That's where they left it. But I'm like, why does a convent need a killing squad? And why are they lurking all the time? Why are they just like kind
To
of?
make sure people don't leave, I guess.
But I guess it's like beyond the fact that they're trying to find that, like trying to create this new savior, why can't people leave? You know what I mean? They never give us any more context as to why they would keep people here, because they're not every woman here gets impregnated. So I don't know. I guess I'm just like, what's the reason that they'll just like kill you like off jump? Like, I don't know. Doesn't that seem kind of weird? Like, they weren't trying to impregnate Gwen, so why can't she leave? You don't have to stay. They say that all the time. Like, some of you are not cut out for this role. You don't have like mother superiors. Like, some of you don't have the spiritual fortitude to stay. That gives me the impression that you can leave if you don't make it. I don't think you have to stay a nun for the rest of your life. Like, don't you?
I said it was a miss, and I said it was a miss because there's just parts of the movie that go back and be added to the front. Like, so I don't know why I gotta explain why. I told you why.
All right, touche. Heard.
Like, it's that kind of stuff. 5 minutes of adding, like, if they would add 30 seconds here, 15 seconds here, 20 seconds here, a 14-second scene here, it would have made the movie more full.
I agree. Yeah. That's something that I did want to bring up.
Because think about how fast we go to that scene with that third trimester is so quick.
It comes up quick. So I know that obviously you gave it a miss. How do you think it compares to Rosemary's Baby? Obviously, I know that it's not at all the same, but
I I understand what Bob people
are
say.
comparing the 2? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I mean, Rosemary's Baby is like a cinematic masterpiece. And this
Right.
movie is not a horrible, like god awful movie. Somebody please take him out of misery.
Mm-hmm.
But I never felt like watching Rosemary's Baby like I'm missing something.
Yes. Okay, yeah, no, I agree. I definitely see the parallels. I understand why people were saying it, and especially with the idea of a forced pregnancy, a pregnancy that nobody was asking for. I see
What did that
that.
baby look like?
I don't know, but I'm glad they didn't show it. But I thought that she did a good job of showing fucking disgust on her face. So I was like, damn, I don't even know if I want to see. I was scared. I was like kind of covering my eyes because I was like, please don't show me this nasty ass baby. But yeah, I do see the parallels. I think that they do share obviously a lot of similarities, but one is, you're like you said, a cinematic masterpiece, and one is just like, okay, I appreciate it for what it is. I'm glad that it's a win for Sydney Sweeney because it did do well at the box
Oh yeah.
office. And I hope that she does more horror in the future because I definitely think that she has what it takes to be in horror. So yeah, that was Immaculate.
Do you want to tell them about the social media?
We are very active on our Instagram, which is Did You Get That on Film, as well as our Facebook and our YouTube channel. And those are all Did You Get That on Film. In addition to that, we do have our email, Did You Get That on Film at gmail.com.
So, with that being said, we will see you guys again next week with a brand new episode.
Bye.
Bye.